this is Alex from 3D Print Academy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can use Fusion 360 to model this spanner, and then also how we can export it as an IGES or STL file so that it can be read by 3D printing preparation programs and actually 3D printed. But the first step is to actually model this in CAD, and we are going to use Fusion. And I'm going to show you step by step how you can create this. So this is one I've made earlier, and the good thing with Fusion is I can go back in time and see all the steps that were used to actually build this. But before I do that, just some basic navigation if you haven't used Fusion before. To move around the model, if you zoom on the mouse wheel, you'll zoom in and out. You can hold the middle mouse wheel in to pan around. And if you hold shift and the middle mouse wheel and move your mouse, you will then be able to orbit round your model. So you can use all of these tools to navigate round and work on your model. There's no right or wrong way you have to be looking. You just want to be able to look at something properly so you can actually see what you're doing, really. As I'm moving around, you'll see that this little cube up here is moving about too. I can also use that by clicking on it to look at various areas of the model. I can click home just to return to the default view, and I can hit front, top, side, left, whatever. Really simple to use. So let's actually start building this from scratch. So if I pull back on the timeline down here, you will see that I started off with this 2D sketch. So this is just mapping out the rough kind of design. And once that's kind of solid, we can then progress into the kind of 3D elements of it. So this 2D sketch is probably the most important part of the model. We need to make sure it's solid, that the CAD software knows exactly what sizes we're working with and how big things have got to be. If it's unconstrained, that means if there's not enough information, basically, there's a risk that things could break later on. So we're going to make sure that that's not the case. So when you first start Fusion, you've probably got a screen that looks a bit like this. First thing you're going to want to do is check that this says model. If it doesn't, click the drop down and click model, because we want to build a model. And we want to create a sketch to start with. So we're going to hit create a sketch, and you're going to click on this little square here, this face or this plane, and we're going to navigate to there. So at the moment, this is the origin. That's the only point in time and space that the program knows where anything is. So we're going to draw off that, and basically we are going to replicate what's on this tab here. So the first thing I'm going to put in is this overall dimension. There's 130 millimeters. This is going to be done with what's known as a construction line, just to roughly map out what it is we're building. So I've gone to the sketch area over here, clicked that drop down and clicked line. I'm then going over to this sketch palette window and selecting construction. So I can then click the origin here, and I'm starting to now draw a line, and you'll see that I can specify the distance and the angle. So I'm just going to snap it onto this red origin plane here. I'm going to type the distance I want, 130 mil. Hit enter on the degrees because we want it at 0. And right click and press OK. Sorry, don't click OK. Actually click on your mouse. My apologies. There we go. So we've now got a construction line that's 130 millimeters, and that's going to be kind of the basis of our shape. So now we're going to do these circles. So we're going to select the sketch button here, circle, and I'm going to go for a center diameter circle. Now my center of my circle is going to be on this line, so I'm just going to draw from any point on the line here and draw out until I meet the edge of this. So I've drawn that circle. It's come out as a construction line. I don't want that. I want it to be a solid line so that we can actually extrude and create 3D geometry from this. So I'll pick that circle, deselect construction. Now what I've got to do is tell Fusion the exact size of this circle, because at the moment it's just any old size. I've just told it I need this edge to be on this point here. But what I can now do is type D on my keyboard, and you'll see my cursor now changes to kind of a dimension tool. I can click the diameter of the circle, I can pull off a dimension, and I can type the value I want. So I'm going to type 30. And that should now resize that circle so that it's still centered on that line, hits the edge of the this line here, so we're not going past 130, and it's 30 diameter. So that's great. I'm happy with that. We're now going to do the same on the other side. So we'll go to circle, center diameter, just doing the same. And if I type D again, D, I can resize that to 30 mil. So that's the kind of two circly bits of it done. We've now got this arced section here, which we'll now draw. So I'm going to go to sketch and arc. 3-point arc is what I want. Start of my arc will be somewhere here. End will be somewhere here. And I can then specify how I want my spanner to be. So we're going to do a bit of an arc up here, like that. And I'm going to convert that to solid line again. And what I'm now going to do is actually tell Fusion exactly where to place this arc. As you see, I can still drag it freely, which is not good. The circles I can't drag because they are fully constrained. So we're going to type D, and we're just going to dimension this arc up. So first I'm going to click from this point to this point. That's going to be 73 something or other. Don't worry about the exact value of that. It just depends where you've placed your arc. So that can be changed later. We'll then put in the absolute radius of the arc. What else do we need? We will also need, yeah, that radius as well. So we'll then pick this one here, and that should fully constrain your arc. So at this stage, you can actually double click those dimensions and give them a bit more of a sensible number if you want to. Although some of them it will probably prevent you from doing because they're restricted by other dimensions. So let's see if we can change that one. No. Okay, the reason we can't change those is because these 2 points are absolute, and we've just told it to draw an arc between this point and this point, and it's fixed. So that's what it's going to be. So don't worry too much about the value of those numbers there. It doesn't really matter for this this application. So now that we've drawn one arc, we're not going to draw the other one. We're just going to copy it across. So providing you've got this construction line in the middle, we can use another command called mirror to actually mirror this line across. So we're going to go to sketch, mirror, and we're going to pick this line, and then we're going to select the mirror line. So we're going to click that there, pick the mirror line, and press OK. So now we've started to actually build up, if I just orbit round, the overall shape of the spanner. So if I just return to the top view, what we can now do is go on the Create tab and select Extrude. So that will reorientate the view. And what we can now do is actually pick these profiles to extrude them and actually make them 3D. So I'm going to pick the circle, I'm going to pick this circle and the midsection. And I can actually drag this blue arrow up and extrude it to a certain value. I can also type that in here and change the direction. So I'm going to tell it that it's 10 mil in depth. So it's not too chunky. That's what we're going to go for, 10 mil. And hit OK. So we've now started to build up the shape. So now what we've got to do, is start to add some of the details onto this. So if we go back to the original model, after the extrude, we then created a secondary sketch with the details on, which were then cut out. So that's the next step, create these kind of features here. And it's quite easy to do. So the first thing we're going to do is create another sketch on top of this 3D geometry we've just created. And we're going to create something similar to that. So the first step is, if we go back to this model, we're going to click the top face we've just created, right click it, and a little menu appears. Click Create Sketch. What that's going to do is create a sketch on this top face now. So now we've got that, the next thing we need to do is something called Project Geometry. And what that will do is it will automatically trace a sketch line of this shape for us. So we can go to Sketch, we can go to Project, which is, there we go, Project Include, Project, hit that face there, and press OK. What that will do is that will create some little purple points, and it will actually have created a purple kind of outline that's quite difficult to see around the shape. So we can now start building up the rest of the sketch. So over on this side, I'm going to go to Sketch. We're going to hit Polygon, and we're going to hit Inscribed Polygon. What we're then going to do is hit this midpoint here, and we're going to draw out our polygon. So I'm going to snap mine to the vertical here. You can give it a value of 8 millimeters, hit enter, and you can change the number of sides too. I'm going to go for 6, but you can type in an alternate number if you wish. Hit enter, and that's going to hit that there. I can then hit D and just constrain it to where it needs to be. It's not that one. What it actually wants is probably construction line. So I'm just going to draw another construction line from there to there. And if I just hit D, we'll tell it exactly where that is. So that's fully constrained by the looks of it. It's not moving anywhere, which is fine. So what we can now do is start drawing out the other part of the shape. And again, we're only going to draw half of it, and then we're going to mirror it again. So I'm going to go to Sketch and Line, and I'm going to start to draw out the shape. So line, there we go. Take that off. Draw from here. It doesn't matter too much on the value. You just want to get the rough kind of shape. So let me just go back. So it's going up, out, and flat down there. Okay, so let's go back. We'll go up vertically a little bit. We've got an angle, and then we'll come down. So we've got that roughly. So now we can kind of play around with that and get it exactly how we want. That'll do. Put some dimensions on there. So we'll have that there. Make that 12. And we'll make that one 5. And we'll make the overall height of that 7, something like that. So yours may look a bit different to this, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you've got a rough kind of shape like that, that's key. I've just realised I've drawn mine a little bit wrong, because if I mirror it, it's going to not create a very good spanner shape. So I'm just going to redraw that line just by pressing delete. I'm just going to redraw it to about here, so that we've got an actual gap. In fact, let's do that bit again. See, even the pros make mistakes. We'll go for 5 mil there, up, and we'll do it a bit more to there, to there. So you don't want to end your sketch on this point here, otherwise it won't be a very usable spanner. So yeah, I've just redrawn it and changed the angle a bit. So I'm just going to add some other dimensions now by pressing D. We'll make that 12. No, we won't. We'll make it 10 because that's what it was before. There we go. And we'll make that 5. That's fine. And then we'll just give that an overall distance there of 7. So that's great. Now that's working. What we can now do is mirror those lines across, so redrawing them. So we'll go Sketch and Mirror, and we'll pick those lines. That will be our mirror line. We'll press OK. So now we're starting to kind of get a spanner-like shape. So what we can now do is hit Create and go Extrude again. And this time we're going to pick those inner areas that we've just created. And this time drag your arrow down the other way and it should go red, and you'll see it's going to cut into the material now. So we can press OK, and that will cut that out. So we now actually do have a spanner. It's nearly complete. The next bit is the trickiest bit, which is actually putting on the text onto the model. So this is back to the original one now. If I just go back and forward in time, you can see that we've actually put the 3D Print Academy logo on. So there are a number of ways you can do this, but the simplest is actually to bring it in as an image and draw around it. So we're actually only going to draw around the 3D bit, so it's not difficult. The text elements of it, you could draw around, but it will take forever. So we're just going to use standard text tools and extrude downwards to create that. So going back to our model here, again, we're going to click the top face, and we're going to right click it and go to Create Sketch. Now you'll need the image already saved onto your machine, which it should be. And providing it is, you can then go to insert. But prior to doing that, what we'll do, we'll just project the geometry again. So we'll project that and we'll add a construction line just down the middle. And it might also be a good idea to add a secondary construction line from the middle down this way. You'll see as I move along the shape, a little triangle appears. That indicates that I'm at the middle or the midpoint. Now we've got a central location there to kind of line up our logo. So now we can go insert, and this little window will pop up. We can select the image. If you just navigate to wherever your image is saved, should be on your desktop, something like that. Click open, and that should, right, just click the face again, sorry. There you go. And now the image will be displayed. So using this round area, we can rotate it round to where it needs to be. We can move it, and you can also increase the size of your logo. So don't make it too big. I left mine on 1, and it seems to fit nicely on the spanner, so we'll go with that. You can also change how opaque you want it. We actually want it quite visible because we're just going to be using it temporarily. So we'll whack that up to 100, press OK. So at the moment, that's just dumped the image onto that face. What we can now do is actually draw around it. So you're going to want to navigate to the top of the view cube and zoom in quite close, because obviously the closer you are, the more accurate you are going to be able to trace round this shape. As I say, there are lots of other ways you can bring in images and create kind of decals or embossed features, but we're going to do it this way. So for the straight lines, it's quite simple. I can just sketch along, make sure you've got solid lines selected. And don't worry about being too precise. As long as it's roughly there, it will look absolutely fine on the final model. So I'm just drawing around the text. So I'm not doing the curved bits yet. I'm just doing the straight bits with the straight line tool, like so. Try and do it letter by letter. Try not to do all of it in one go. For the curved bits, we're going to select a spline, which is here. And we're going to go to fit point spline. And basically, we're just going to keep clicking along the curve. And the more you click, the more accurate you'll be able to follow that curve. When we reach the end, just right click, press OK. And then we can go again. We can select spline and oops. Spline. Right. Why is that doing that? Spline. Have I got something selected I shouldn't have? I think I've come out the sketch now. There we go. So now I should be able to carry on drawing along. Just roughly drawing around. It doesn't matter if you accidentally misclick, because the whole point of a spline is that you'll see once you create it, you get these control points which you can use to actually change the curvature of your shape. So once we've done one letter, we'll move on to this one. Don't worry, we're not doing all of those. We're going to do those quicker. It's just this 3D bit we're going to do quickly. So then we'll do all the straight bits again. I should note as well, if you press L, you can get the line tool back quickly after you press escape. So for the curved bit again, we'll go to spline. I'll just zoom in a bit and roughly just trace around that curve. Okay, do another one. Oops, freezing a bit there. Right, spline, fit point, another. Okay, so that's our 3D bit done. Again, you can modify and perfect it if you want to, just by pulling on those points. If you go wrong, just Control Z will undo. So now we're going to do the text elements, and rather than draw this out, because this is just quite plain text, we're just going to actually use a sketch text button. So we're going to go to sketch and text, and just click somewhere on that P and just type print in capitals. Hit bold, and what that'll do is it will start to generate that text. So we can move it around, we can rotate it using the little thing that pops up there. We want it straight, and if you type this, you can change the height. So we might make that 5, maybe a bit smaller, 3. Yeah, that's going to do. So what we'll do is we'll click OK on that, and we'll just drag it to roughly over where print is there. So it's roughly matching. And then we're going to do exactly the same for Academy. So we'll take text, we'll hit that point there, we'll write Academy, change my height maybe to 2, and I'm going to change the font to, not that one, AMGDT-IV25. It's just, as soon as you open that, you'll see it there. Just to thin it out, we will reorientate it, and we might just make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it 3, and let's make it bold. Okay, so we'll just move, we'll just move that. Right, okay. I've accidentally hit the little construction point here, so my text wants to automatically only fix to that point. So if you want to move it at that point, you're actually going to have to delete it and redo it. So that's my bad. So don't just click the point. Maybe just click somewhere in space. You won't have that problem. So Academy, we'll go for 3 mil. And we'll change the font to that one. We'll just reorientate it, and we'll make it bold, and we'll hit OK, and then we will just freely move, and you'll see now I can actually move it round, which is good. So we'll hit it there, we'll size it up a bit. Again, because I don't have the exact font from in Fusion loaded, won't marry it exactly, but that's not a problem. So now what we can do is right click down here on that little picture, and we can go to, in fact we can stop the sketch first, right click on that image, and we can suppress feature, and what that will do is that will just hide the image for us. So now what we've got is some areas that we can actually extrude and manipulate. So providing we're out of the sketch, we can now go to create, extrude, pick the 3, pick the D, pick both of your text, and just go down and type -2 mil and enter, and that will cut the text into your model. So the only thing we've got left to do on this now is to kind of just round it off and make it a little more usable, a little more ergonomic. And if we go back to the original model, you'll see that's just been done by applying some fillets. So what we will now do is go back here, we'll go create, and we will go to, we'll go to modify, and we'll go to fillet. What we'll now do is we'll pick the 4 edges here. Okay, we'll give them a value that we want to have. I think 5 mil will work quite nicely. So 5 mil is going to create something like that. So what we'll then do is click add new selection here, and we'll then pick this circle here, this circle here, that arc, that arc, that arc, and that arc, and we will type in 3 mil radius for those, and there we go. We'll now hit OK, and we have now built the spanner ready for 3D printing. So what we now have to do is export this into a format that other 3D print programs can use. So what we will now do is go to the little file button up here, and we will go to export. So for export, just call it 3D PA spanner, and then just put your name there. The file type, you're going to want to put it as an IJUST file, or a step file will probably work as well. Don't bother saving the project to the cloud unless you want to. but you can also save it to your computer, which is actually what we want. So I'm just going to save it to the desktop because it's a nice, easy location to have it. So once we've done that, you are now ready to open up some 3D print preparation software and get this ready to 3D print. So just to show you it works, I've got GrabCAD open. If I go to add model, if I go to 3D PA spanner your name, that's one we just made, I can hit open and it'll insert it into the software, and you're then free to orientate the model to where it needs to be, add support, slice the model, and prep it for 3D printing. So I hope you found that useful. Thanks very much, and good luck 3D printing.